You won't believe the videos our fans sent us this week, and you won't find them anywhere else either. Hold on to your hats because it's time for Wham Bam Dashcam. Ryan was heading to visit his parents after work one day when the driver of the white Subaru in front of him didn't realize a driver ahead was stopping to wait for oncoming traffic before making a left turn. Without enough time to slow down and stop, the Subaru driver veered into the oncoming lane before colliding with the Ford Escape the other driver had been waiting for in the first place. Ryan called 911 and first responders arrived 3 minutes later. The couple in the Ford Escape were actually his parents' neighbors, and Ryan provided them with a copy of his dashcam footage. He caught up with them a week later, and they told Ryan the footage had been very useful for their insurance claim. Gabriel was headed home when highway traffic ahead began to slow down for a construction zone. One pickup driver evidently didn't notice what was happening until it was too late for them to safely stop. After taking out multiple cones, the pickup smashed into the back of a semi-truck ahead of Gabriel. He stopped and checked on the pickup driver, who thankfully wasn't seriously injured. A police officer already on scene helped get the pickup truck off the highway. Gabriel offered the officer his dashcam footage, but he never reached out for it. Venkat had just picked up his son from daycare and was waiting to make an unprotected left turn when the light turned yellow, then red. A driver coming up the straight lane next to him decided he didn't want to wait. Little did the driver of the white Corolla know, there was a police car right behind Venkat. The officer sped after the Toyota driver to serve him a helping of instant justice. This submitter was merging like a zipper when the driver of a pickup truck decided he was too important to end up behind our submitter's Hyundai Tucson. When the pickup driver tried to squeeze in front of our submitter, he sideswiped the Hyundai SUV, but then he just kept going. Our submitter followed him for a long time, honking to get his attention. The pickup driver tried to fake him out at an exit. Then when that didn't work, he pulled off the road and locked up his brakes, sliding to a stop. When our submitter also stopped, he ran over and yanked open his passenger door. The pickup driver screamed at our submitter to call the cops, but he told us he was already on the phone with them. When they arrived, the pickup driver told them a story that made it sound like our submitter was at fault. Our submitter stayed calm and showed the police his dashcam footage, and that was all they needed to find the other driver responsible. He was charged with failing to yield, attempting to leave the scene of a collision, and dangerous driving. Not only will his insurance provider be paying to fix our submitter's vehicle, he gets to go to court to explain his actions. Our submitter told us that, without a dashcam, this situation would have ended very differently. If you need a dashcam, check out the link to our recommendation in the description. Ted was making a DoorDash delivery when the driver of a pickup truck rolled coal on his Toyota Corolla. Unless there's something that happened before the footage Ted sent us, we have no idea why the pickup driver felt this action was necessary. It certainly can't be blamed on hate against Teslas or EVs. Maybe he just felt the urge to compensate for his own inadequacy in some other area. I guess we'll never know. Nelson started through an intersection after waiting patiently for the light to turn green. A driver from the left was less patient, and Nelson had to slam on the brakes to avoid being T-boned. Even though her light was clearly red, the Scion driver honked at Nelson as if he'd run a red light. Thankfully, he'd managed to avoid a collision and was able to continue without having to stop and prove her wrong. Mark was driving a tow truck, which was pretty convenient considering what he witnessed. The driver of a pickup made a last-minute high-speed exit before briefly losing control and hitting another vehicle. Mark stopped to check on the other driver and to see if he could decipher the pickup's license plate number from his dashcam footage. Thankfully, he was able to provide it to the Minnesota State Patrol. This submitter is also a DoorDasher and was heading to pick up an order at a convenience store when a driver with their lights off almost turned in front of him. This time, a police pickup truck pulled over the dim-witted driver for some instant justice. I think it's time for another Wham Bam public service announcement. Just because your car's running lights are partially illuminating the road in front of you does not mean your lights are on. Driving with only your running lights or only your fog lights on could mean your tail lights are off. Not only is driving this way at night illegal, it's also unsafe. Other drivers may not be able to see you ahead of them, and running lights and fog lights aren't designed to provide enough light for you to drive by. The next time you drive at night, make sure your headlights are on, not just your running lights. Better yet, stick them on auto and just leave them alone. Then you won't have to worry about them. Of course, you also need to be watching the road for your headlights to do you any good. Rob watched a driver turn too wide through an intersection before taking out a road sign set up in the middle of a traffic island. Rob told us the driver hadn't moved when their light had turned green, then they peeled out and lost control after other drivers honked at them. Eyes off your phones and on the road, please. Zach watched a silver SUV make a legal right on red up at the intersection ahead, but then the driver of a utility truck pulling a trailer also made a right on red without stopping or waiting for traffic to clear. Zach slammed on his brakes and narrowly avoided colliding with the trailer. Remember what we said last week? It's not the responsibility of other drivers to make room for you. Don't force others to slow down or stop. Noah was driving in Miami when he passed a Tesla Model 3 waiting behind a bus that was stopping at a crosswalk. This offended the Tesla driver, who then chased Noah down, insisting on being this week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
When the Tesla driver tried to cut in front of Noah, she sideswiped his BMW instead. Both drivers stopped and Noah called the police, and he told us the insurance claim is still being processed. By the way, we're trying to hit 500,000 subscribers before Christmas, so if you're enjoying this video, hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. George sent us this video. Wait, is that how you pronounce his name? Let's double check the recording he sent us at our request.
Jorge Costa.
Okay, good, I had it right the first time, and all previous times, like in episode 8 and in TeslaCam episodes 125 and 126. Every one of those submitters told us to pronounce their names like George, so I did. You can stop correcting me. Anyway, George was driving in Portugal when something came flying off a semi-truck in the lane next to him and smashed into his windshield. His sun visor was down at the time, and he had no idea what had happened. By the time George had stopped to review his dashcam footage, the semi responsible for causing the damage was long gone. Thankfully, he told us that in Portugal, all insured drivers can get their cracked windshields replaced for free. That spared George from paying around $475 for a replacement windshield. George! Phil found out what happens when two impatient drivers cross paths.
Holy!
A Subaru passing traffic over yellow stripes ran into an Impala driver who tried to shoot the gap between cars to exit a parking lot. Phil told us he offered his dashcam footage to the cops, but they never called him back. Chris watched the driver of a silver Lexus make a right on red before turning into his lane without warning. Chris honked and swerved, barely avoiding a collision with the Lexus by dodging into the yellow striped area. He told us he just kept going, and the Lexus drove off like nothing had happened. Brandon was in stop-and-go traffic on a highway thanks to a collision scene a few miles ahead. Sadly, the driver of a van in the lane to his right was about to cause another collision. Actually, I'm not sure what happened here. Traffic was moving slowly and the van's brake lights lit up, so it seems like the van driver was at least trying to stop. What do you think happened? Rick was driving along when he watched a blue Volvo speed past traffic in a turn-only lane before weaving between other cars and speeding off. A little while later, he overtook more traffic over a solid line, which is illegal. Not long after, they encountered a police roadblock where the Volvo driver tried to make a U-turn, but they were cut off by a Good Samaritan. So instead, they used oncoming lanes to evade capture. Rick offered his dashcam footage to the police, and they were grateful to have it as evidence and assured Rick they would catch the reckless driver sooner or later. He hasn't heard anything else about it. Riley had just merged onto the interstate when traffic suddenly slowed way down. When she heard a crash from behind, she tried to avoid being rear-ended by a Fiat headed toward her, but there was nothing she could do. The Fiat had been rear-ended by a silver Audi, which was the crash she'd heard, and pushed into Riley's Volvo before the Audi driver sped off, with steam coming from under the hood. Riley gave her dashcam footage to the police when they responded, but then the Audi driver returned and was apprehended. The cops told Riley the Audi driver was intoxicated and uninsured. Riley made a claim with her own insurance provider, but chose not to replace the bumper cover as she parks her Volvo on the street where she figures it's probably going to get bumped into anyway. Joseph was driving down a snow-covered Ohio highway when he was nearly sandwiched between two semi-trucks when one swerved to avoid hitting a car that was losing control. The Dodge Charger had started sliding, prompting the driver of the red semi to swerve left. But Joseph had another semi passing him on his left and had nowhere to go. Thankfully, he managed to avoid contact with either truck. Here's another case where we need your expert opinion on who is at fault. This submitter watched an oncoming driver making a legal right on red get hit by another driver making a protected left turn. Our submitter wasn't able to stop, so they don't know the outcome of the collision investigation. What do you think? Should the oncoming driver have waited, or should the driver turning left have slowed down? Ellie was on her way to visit family when she found herself driving through an intense storm. After a large branch fell across the road in front of her, she decided to return home, but watch what happened when she got there. Just as she pulled into her driveway, a bolt of lightning struck right across the street behind her. She told us it shook her Hyundai Accent and made her ears go fuzzy, and the loud rumble shook her heart. When she went inside, her stepmom told her their robotic vacuum cleaner had started up all on its own, and her power was knocked out for 7 hours. Thankfully, nothing belonging to them was damaged.
Wham! Bam, we got a Patreon man. Please support the show.